Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching something that made his blood run cold. A massive alien vessel was appearing in Earth's orbit, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship was dark gray, with strange blue lights running along its sides. It looked like a floating city made of metal and crystal. Jake had been a space captain for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. His hands shook as he reached for the communication device. He needed to contact Earth Defense. Command immediately. The alien ship was 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. It moved slowly through space, not making any threatening moves, but its size alone was terrifying. Jake could see smaller ships flying around it like bees around a hive. These beings had technology that was far beyond anything humans possessed. Down on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter received Jake's urgent message at the defense headquarters. She was a tough woman who had served in the military for 25 years. She had seen many dangerous situations, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The aliens were finally here. The first contact protocols that Earth had prepared seemed useless now. This was not a peaceful meeting between equals. The size of the alien ship made it clear that these beings could destroy Earth if they wanted to. Lisa called an emergency meeting with all the top military commanders. Within an hour, the alien ship sent a message to Earth. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, translated by some kind of advanced computer system. It spoke perfect English, which meant these aliens had been watching humanity for some time. "We are the Galactic Tribute Council," the voice said. "We represent 12 species that have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your species has reached the level of space travel. This means you must now follow our laws." Lisa felt her heart sink. This was not a friendly visit. The aliens were here to make demands. She ordered all recording devices to capture every word of the message. The alien voice continued without any emotion. "Every species in this galaxy must pay tribute to the Council. This is how we maintain peace and order. You will provide 30% of all resources your planet produces each year. You will also provide 10% of your population to work in our facilities across the galaxy." The room fell silent. Lisa looked around at her officers. Their faces showed the same shock and horror that she felt. The aliens were demanding almost 1/3 of everything Earth produced, plus millions of human beings to work as slaves. "In return," the voice went on, "we will protect your species from hostile aliens. We will allow limited trade with other species under our control. Your planet will be registered as a protected world in our database." The message ended with a simple statement that chilled everyone in the room. "You have 72 hours to accept these terms. All species receive the same offer. All species accept these terms. There are no exceptions." Dr. Helen Brooks, Earth's top expert on alien life, had been studying everything they knew about spacefaring civilizations. She had always hoped that first contact would be peaceful, that humans could learn from advanced aliens. Now she realized how naive that hope had been. Helen pulled up the historical records that the Council had included with their message. The data showed hundreds of different species across the galaxy. Each one had a similar story. The Council would arrive, make their demands, and within days or weeks, the species would surrender. Some species had tried to negotiate. The records showed that a few had managed to reduce the tribute from 30% to 25%. But in the end, they all submitted to the Council's rule. The alternative was complete destruction. President Alex Turner called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the meeting hall. The atmosphere was tense as they reviewed the alien demands. Some people argued for immediate surrender. Others wanted to fight, even though the odds were hopeless. The president looked tired as he studied the reports. Earth's entire military, could not match even one of the smaller ships surrounding the alien vessel. The Council had thousands of ships, advanced weapons, and the experience of conquering hundreds of worlds. What are our options? Turner asked. His advisors. General Chris Hayes, the head of Earth's military, spoke first. We could try to negotiate. Maybe we can get them to lower their demands. The historical records show that rarely works, Helen said. Most species that tried to negotiate only managed to reduce the tribute by a few percentage points. The Council has done this thousands of times before. Lisa studied the alien ship through the window. It hung in space above Earth like a dark cloud, a constant reminder of humanity's helplessness. She had spent her entire career preparing to defend Earth. But how could they defend against something like this? We need to think about our people, Turner said. If we refuse, they could destroy our entire planet. If we accept, at least most of humanity will survive. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued that slavery was worse than death. Others believed that survival was the most important thing, that humanity could find a way to regain their freedom in the future. As the first day passed, more reports came in from around the world. The alien ship was scanning Earth, studying human cities, military bases, and industrial facilities. It was clear that the Council already knew everything about human capabilities. The deadline was approaching fast. In less than 2 days, humanity would have to give their answer to the Council's demands. The fate of the entire human race hung in the balance. Everyone knew that this moment would define humanity's future. Would they become slaves to alien masters? Or would they find another way? The answer would come soon enough. Pete Collins was tired. He had been working for 18 hours straight in the communications center, checking and double-checking the alien message. His job was to make sure that every word the Council had sent was translated correctly. The fate of humanity might depend on understanding exactly what the aliens meant. Pete was only 24 years old and had been working for Earth Defense Command for just 2 years. He was not important enough to attend the big meetings with presidents and generals. His job was simple. Read the alien message over and over again, looking for any mistakes in translation. The message was clear enough. The aliens wanted 30% of Earth's resources and 10% of its people. They wanted humanity to become slaves. Pete had read the message so many times that he could recite it from memory. As he sat at his desk, Pete thought about his younger sister, Lucy. She was only 16 and dreamed of becoming a teacher. Under the Council's rules, she might be chosen to work in alien facilities. She might never see Earth again. Pete looked at the message one more time. The words seemed to burn his eyes. Every species accepts these terms. There are no exceptions. The alien spoke as if humanity had no choice at all. That was when Pete said it. He did not plan to speak out loud. He did not realize that anyone was listening. He just looked at the message and said what he was thinking. No, the word came out. Quietly, but in the silent communications room, everyone heard it. Pete looked up and saw that Admiral Lisa Carter was standing behind him. President Alex Turner was there too, along with several other important officials. They had come to check on the translation work. Pete's face turned red. He had just spoken out of turn in front of the most powerful people on Earth. He started to apologize, but Admiral Carter held up her hand. "What did you say, son?" she asked. Pete swallowed hard. "I said no, ma'am. I was just thinking about my sister and about all the people who would be taken away, and I just said no." President Turner stepped forward. "No to what, exactly?" "No to all of it," Pete said, his voice getting stronger. "No to giving them our resources. No to letting them take our people. No to becoming slaves. Just no." The room was quiet for a long moment. Admiral Carter looked at President Turner. Both of them had spent the last day trying to find a way to negotiate with the aliens. They had considered every possible option, every way to make the best of a terrible situation. "It's that simple, isn't it?" Turner said slowly. "We can just say no." General Chris Hayes had been quiet, but now he spoke up. "The consequences of saying no could be the destruction of our entire planet. The consequences of saying yes is the destruction of our freedom." Pete replied, "Maybe that's worse." Admiral Carter walked to the window and looked up at the alien ship. It was still there, hanging in space like a dark threat. In all their historical records, has any species ever just said no? Dr. Helen Brooks checked her computer. According to the data they provided, every species has either accepted the terms or tried to negotiate. No one has given a flat refusal. "Then they don't know how to handle it," Turner said. "They have protocols for negotiation and surrender, but not for simple refusal." Pete stood up from his desk. "Mr. President, I know I'm not supposed to give advice to people like you, but I have to say this. My grandfather fought in 3 wars to keep America free. My father served in the Navy for 20 years. They didn't do that so I could hand over my freedom to aliens. What do you think we should do?" Admiral Carter asked. "I think we should tell them no," Pete said. "Not maybe, not let's negotiate, not please give us better terms. Just no." The word hung in the air. It was such a simple word, but it carried so much weight. It meant that humanity would rather face destruction than accept slavery. President Turner made the decision that would change everything. "Prepare a transmission to the alien ship. Our response will be exactly what Pete said. One word, no." Within an hour, the message was ready. Pete had been chosen to send it himself, since it was his idea. He sat at the communications console and opened a channel to the council ship. "This is Earth Defense Command responding to your tribute demand," Pete said into the microphone. "Humanity's response is no." He closed the channel and sat back in his chair. It was done. In less than 30 seconds, humanity had given its answer to 10,000 years of galactic tyranny. The alien ship was silent for several minutes. Then a message came back. The mechanical voice sounded confused, almost uncertain. "Please clarify your response. Are you requesting time to consider terms? Are you proposing alternative arrangements?" Pete opened the channel again. "Negative. Our response is final. We refuse your demands. No tribute. No slaves. No surrender. The answer is no." Another long silence followed. On the alien ship, Executor Vex Collar stared at the translation screen. In 10,000 years of conquest, this had never happened. Every species begged for mercy, tried to negotiate, or simply gave up. No one had ever just said no. The executor ran the translation through the computer 5 more times. Each time, the result was the same. The humans had refused. Not just refused to negotiate, but refused entirely. Commander Ryan Murphy, Earth's military liaison, received a request from the alien ship. They wanted to confirm that the translation was correct. Ryan looked at the message and smiled. "Confirmed," he transmitted back. "Humanity's answer to your tribute demand is no." The alien ship remained in orbit, but it did not attack. The Council had no idea what to do next. For the first time in 10,000 years, their standard procedure had failed. News of humanity's response spread quickly through Earth's communication networks. People gathered in the streets, watching the alien ship on giant screens. Some were terrified, but others felt something they had not expected: pride. Humanity had looked at overwhelming power and simply said no. It was just one word, but it was the most important word in human history. The Council homeworld had not been silent for over 3,000 years. Deep in the center of the galaxy, on a planet covered in crystal towers and metal spires, The 12 ruling species gathered for the first time in centuries. They had not needed to meet in person for so long because their system worked perfectly. Every species surrendered. Every world paid tribute. Until now, Executor Vex Collar stood in the center of the great council chamber, feeling smaller than ever before. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy surrounded him, and their anger was clear. He had sent the same message he had sent to thousands of worlds, but somehow it had failed. "Explain this failure," commanded Pyrrhix 9, the representative of the molten hegemony. The being of living fire burned brighter when it was angry, and right now it was very angry. "There is no failure in our procedures," Vex Collar replied. "We followed all protocols. We gave them 72 hours to respond. We provided historical data showing that resistance is pointless. We offered the same terms that every species receives, yet they refused," whispered the Void Dancer representative, the energy being spoke through a translator that made its voice sound like wind through empty space. They did not negotiate. They did not ask for better terms. They simply said no. The Zephyrian delegate, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, leaned forward. "In our database of conquered worlds, has any species ever given such a response?" Vex Collar checked his records for the 100th time. "None. Every species has either accepted our terms immediately or attempted to negotiate. Some have tried to fight and been destroyed, but none have simply refused without explanation. What if they misunderstood?" suggested the crystalline hive speaker. "Perhaps their translation systems are not accurate." "We confirmed the translation multiple times," Vex Collar said. "Their response was clear and deliberate. They understand our terms perfectly. They simply refuse to accept them." The chamber fell silent. For 10,000 years, the system had worked. Species would see the Council's power and submit. Those who tried to fight would be destroyed as examples to others. The galaxy had been peaceful and orderly under Council rule, but now something had changed. A small, insignificant species had said no, and the Council did not know how to respond. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something extraordinary was happening. The news of humanity's refusal had spread through the underground networks that connected rebel groups and resistance movements. For the first time in millennia, oppressed species had something to talk about. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, a group of enslaved Zephyrians stopped their work to discuss the news. They had been forced to dig rare metals from the planet's core for over 200 years. Their own people had submitted to the Council centuries ago, and they had accepted their fate. "Is it true?" asked Zara, a young Zephyrian who had been born in the mines. "Did the humans really just say no?" "The reports are spreading through every system," replied Keth, an older worker. They gave no explanation, no justification. Just one word, no. Similar conversations were happening on Factory. Worlds, prison planets, and slave colonies throughout the galaxy. Species that had forgotten what freedom felt like began to remember. The word no became a symbol of hope. Back in Earth's solar system, the standoff continued. The Council ship remained in orbit, neither attacking nor leaving. Captain Jake Morrison watched it from the bridge of his ship, wondering what the aliens were thinking. "Any word from command?" asked his first officer, Maria Santos. "Nothing yet," Jake replied. "The alien ship hasn't moved in 6 hours. They're just sitting there." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was dealing with a crisis of her own. Reports were coming in from human colonies throughout the solar system. Every human outpost, every mining station, every research facility was asking the same question. What do we do now? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lucy Collins, Pete's 16-year-old sister, had started a video blog about the alien situation. Her simple message had gone viral across all human communication networks. My brother Pete said no to the aliens, Lucy explained to her camera. He said no because he believes in freedom. He said no because he believes in humanity. If we're going to die, we should die as free people, not as slaves. The video had been watched by over 1 billion people in just 12 hours. Similar messages were appearing everywhere. Humans who had never thought about politics or freedom were suddenly talking about nothing else. President Alex Turner received a message that changed everything. It came from the Alterian Republic, a warrior species that had been forced to submit to the Council 300 years earlier. The message was simple and direct. We have heard of your refusal. We want to learn how to say no. Within hours, similar messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were reaching out to humanity, not for help, but for inspiration. They wanted to know how a small species had found the courage to refuse. Dr. Helen Brooks was amazed by the response. It's like we started a fire, she told Admiral Carter. Species that have been silent for centuries are suddenly talking about resistance. The Council must be terrified, Carter replied. Their entire system depends on fear and submission. If other species start saying no, their empire will collapse. The standoff entered its second week. The Council ship remained in orbit, and Earth's defenses stayed on high alert. But something had changed in the galaxy. The word no was spreading like a virus, infecting species across thousands of worlds. On the Council homeworld, the 12, ruling species were beginning to panic. Reports were coming in from every sector of the galaxy. Slave colonies were becoming restless. Some species were openly questioning their tribute obligations. The humans had done something that no species had ever done before. They had made saying no seem possible. And that possibility was the most dangerous thing the Council had ever faced. The first crack in the Council's empire came from an unexpected place. The Alterian Republic had been a proud warrior nation before the Council's conquest 300 years ago. Their people had fought bravely, but were eventually forced to surrender after their homeworld was threatened with destruction. General Cora Vex stood in the command center of the Alterian flagship Iron Storm, watching the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The humans had been saying no to the Council for 3 weeks now, and nothing had happened. The Council ship still sat in Earth's orbit, but it had not attacked. Send the message, Cora ordered her communications officer. The transmission went out on all frequencies, directed at both the Council ship and Earth's Defense Command. The words were simple, but they shook the galaxy to its core. This is the Alterian Republic. We withdraw our tribute to the Council. We stand with the humans. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter received the message with shock and joy. The Alterians were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. If they were willing to rebel, other species might follow. Get me a line to the Alterian commander, Carter ordered. Within minutes, she was speaking directly to General Cora Vex, the Alterian. General appeared on the screen, her blue skin marked with the ritual scars of her warrior culture. Admiral Carter, Cora said with a slight bow, my people have been slaves for 300 years. We forgot what it meant to be free. Your species reminded us. We're honored by your support, Carter replied. But you know what this means. The Council will send ships to punish you. Let them come, Cora said with a fierce smile. We have been preparing for this day since our defeat. We never stopped building ships or training warriors. We were just waiting for someone to show us that rebellion was possible. The Alterian announcement was like a signal flare across the galaxy. Within hours, other species began to follow. The Mechanical Collective, a race of advanced robots that had been forced to build weapons for the Council, shut down their factories and declared independence. The Fungal Networks, a species of connected plant-like beings that covered entire planets, began cutting off food supplies to council worlds. The crystalline hives, who had been forced to mine rare crystals for council technology, sealed their tunnels and refused to work. Commander Ryan Murphy, Earth's military liaison, was amazed by the reports coming in. "It's like a dam burst," he told Admiral Carter. "Species that have been silent for centuries are suddenly declaring independence." On the council homeworld, panic was spreading through the crystal towers. The 12 ruling species had called emergency sessions every day for a week. Their empire was falling apart, and they did not know how to stop it. "We must make an example," Pyrrhix 9 declared, the being of living fire burning brighter with anger. "Destroy the human world and all rebellion will end. The humans are no longer alone," the Void Dancer representative whispered. "If we attack Earth, we will be fighting dozens of species. Then we fight them all," the Zephyrian delegate said with 4 arms spread wide. "We have done it before. We can do it again." Executor Vex Collar was called back to the council chamber. He had been waiting in Earth's orbit for 3 weeks, unsure of what to do. Now the council was ready to give him new orders. "Assemble the punishment fleet," they commanded. "Every ship from every sector. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the council." The largest fleet in galactic history began to gather. Ships from hundreds of worlds, built over thousands of years, came together in the empty space between star systems. The armada was designed to terrify, to show overwhelming force that would break the spirit of any rebellion. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy ships jump into Earth's solar system. The fleet was massive, stretching across space like a dark cloud. There were ships of every size and shape, from small fighters to massive battleships that could destroy entire cities. "How many?" he asked his tactical officer. "Over 10,000. "Ships," came the reply. "We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Jake opened a channel to all human ships in the system. "This is Captain Morrison. We all knew this day would come. We all knew the odds. But we also know why we're here. We're fighting for freedom, not just for humans, but for every species in the galaxy." The council fleet formed up in attack formation. Executor Vex Callar opened a channel to Earth, his mechanical voice carrying across space. "This is your final warning. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. Continue to resist, and we will make your planet burn for 1,000 years." President Alex Turner's response was broadcast across every human channel and transmitted to every species in the galaxy. His voice was calm but firm. "We said no 3 weeks ago. We said no yesterday. We say no today. That will never change." Words had barely finished when something incredible happened. Jump signatures began appearing throughout the solar system. Ships materialized from hyperspace, taking positions around Earth. The Alterian Republic arrived first, the red and gold. Warships taking formation alongside the human fleet. Then came the Mechanical Collective, their geometric ships humming with energy. The fungal networks brought their living vessels, pulsing with organic weapons. More and more species arrived. The crystalline hives, the molten rebels, the void walkers, the ocean dwellers. Species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences to stand together against the council. Within hours, the solar system was filled with ships from across the galaxy. The council fleet still outnumbered them, but the rebels were united by something the council had never understood: the desire for freedom. General Chris Hayes watched the allied fleet form up and smiled. "It's not about winning or losing anymore," he said. "It's about showing the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." The battle for Earth was about to begin, but it was no longer just Earth's battle. It had become the battle for the entire galaxy. The Battle of Earth lasted exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. When it was over, 10,000 years of galactic tyranny had ended, and a new age of freedom had begun. The first shot came from Executor Vex Collar's ship. The crystalline vessel fired its main weapon at Earth, a beam of pure energy that could crack a moon in half. But the shot never reached its target. 3 different ships moved to block it, sacrificing themselves to protect the small blue planet. Then the galaxy erupted. In Light and Fire Dot, Captain Jake Morrison had expected the battle to last for hours. He thought his small human fleet would fight bravely before being destroyed. He never imagined what actually happened. The Council ships were powerful, but they had been built to fight individual species, one at a time. They had never faced a united galaxy before. Weapons designed by dozens of different species, tactics learned from centuries of separate wars, and technologies that had never been combined before all came together in perfect harmony. The Alterian Republic ships moved like dancers, their red hulls flashing as they struck fast and hard. The Mechanical Collective attacked with mathematical precision, each shot calculated for maximum damage. The fungal networks used living weapons that adapted to their targets in real time. Admiral Lisa Carter watched from the command center as the impossible happened. The Council fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just minutes before, was falling apart. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were being destroyed by species they had enslaved. Focus fire on the command ship, Carter ordered. She wanted to end this quickly before more people died. 20 different species turned their weapons on Executor Vex Collar's vessel. The crystalline ship, which had delivered tribute demands to hundreds of worlds, shattered like glass under the combined assault. Vex Collar's last transmission was a single word of disbelief. Impossible. With their commander gone, the Council fleet lost all coordination. Some ships tried to fight, but they were quickly overwhelmed. Others attempted to escape, but the rebel forces surrounded them on all sides. Most simply surrendered their crews. Realizing that the war was already overdone in the aftermath, the solar system was quiet except for rescue operations. Ships from dozens of species worked together to help survivors and collect the wounded. Former enemies shared medical supplies and offered aid to anyone who needed it. President Alex Turner stood in the communications center, looking out at the mixed fleet that surrounded Earth. Just a month ago, humanity had been alone in the galaxy. Now they were part of something much larger. What do we do now? Asked Pete Collins, a young man whose simple no had started everything. Now we build something better, Turner replied. The first meeting of the Free Galaxy Alliance took place on Earth, in the same room where humanity had decided to refuse the Council's demands. Representatives from over 50 species gathered to create a new system of government for the galaxy. The founding document was surprisingly short. It contained just one basic principle, suggested by Pete Collins. No species shall be forced. Surrender their freedom to another. Admiral Carter was elected as the first speaker of the Alliance. She accepted the position with the same calm determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. We didn't fight for glory, she told the assembled delegates. We fought because someone had to say no. Now we have to prove that freedom can work better than tyranny. The task was enormous. Thousands of worlds needed to be liberated. Millions of enslaved beings had to be freed and helped to rebuild their lives. The galaxy's entire economy, which had been based on tribute and forced labor, needed to be completely changed. Dr. Helen Brooks was put in charge of documenting the transformation. As the Alliance's chief xenobiologist, she traveled to dozens of worlds to study how different species were adapting to freedom. On some planets, former slaves were learning to govern themselves for the first time in centuries. On others, species were rediscovering technologies and cultures that had been suppressed by the Council. It was not always easy, and there were many problems, but progress was being made. The Council homeworld itself became a symbol of the new age. The crystal towers that had housed the 12 ruling species were converted into museums and schools. The planet became a center of learning where different species could share their knowledge and work together on common problems. General Cora Vex of the Alterian Republic became the Alliance's first military commander. Under her leadership, the combined fleet was transformed from a weapon of war into a force for peace, protecting trade routes and helping with disaster relief. Captain Morrison, now commanding the Alliance flagship Liberty, often thought about how much had changed. The Council had ruled through fear, making species believe that resistance was impossible. They had never faced a species that simply refused to accept that premise. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts between species. Still, planets that struggled with poverty and disease. Still people who missed the old days when everything was simple and orderly. But it was free. Children of dozens of species learned about the day when a small world looked at overwhelming power and said no. They learned that freedom was not something that could be given or taken away. It was something that had to be chosen. Again and again, every single day. And in the quiet moments between the stars, when the galaxy seemed vast and uncertain, beings across the cosmos remembered the lesson that Earth had taught them. Sometimes the most powerful response to tyranny was also the simplest one. The word that had changed everything still echoed through space, carried by radio waves and quantum transmissions to every corner of the galaxy. It was more than just a word, no. It was a promise, a way of life, a reminder that freedom was always possible for those brave enough to reach for it. No.